Hello there, people, and I know it has been 2 weeks. Sorry about that, but I kind of felt like I needed to do this video since well, the Snyder Cut is coming and all that. So I kind of wanted to do this. I've been kind of wanting to do this video for a while. It's gonna be more. I'm gonna compare two movies that came out the same year. Both came out in 2016, and will show, in my opinion, anyway, why one is better than the other. It is Batman v Superman and Civil War, or what I call Civil Play Fight. It's more why It's basically gonna be why I think Civil Play Fight. I'm gonna be calling it that throughout the video because I'm gonna hammer that point. It was a play fight. I'm just gonna start off with that. It was a play fight, man. The airport fight was one of the most overhyped thing. It was cool the first time, and it was mainly because of Spider-Man. But then, how we already know, we've seen. I did the video on it. How MCU Spider-Man has turned out since then. But same with Black Panther. But other than that, it was the play fight. No one was hurting each other. They were throwing jokes. It also, it just visually didn't look that great. It's just at a fucking airport. There's no cool shot moment. And then, even when you think someone died, i.e. Rhodes, he fucking is. You see that he's gonna get better in the end of the movie, so it doesn't even takes you out of it. Whereas BVS, the stakes, I think that's the biggest point why I love that movie. There's stakes in it. Yes, there's a few heroes, but it is mainly Batman and Superman. People act like Wonder Woman. She's thrown in there just to kind of give you a little tease, like, oh, she's here. And the Justice League thing, which people cry about, was a video, and I actually prefer the way they did that versus, oh, let's just throw Aquaman and Cyborg randomly in this movie. No. And then the nightmare scene was clearly, it was supposed to be, which we're going to get in the Snyder Cut, was supposed to be a vision of the future. And that's what that was. But, whereas just Civil War was just made clearly because BVS happened, and originally it was supposed to be a Captain America 3, and I know some people try to say that was fake, and that's what's really disappointing. I wanted a real Cap 3. I really loved Winter Soldier, and I was hoping we were going to get something like that, and it just wasn't. The movie just all around is just dumb in terms of plot. There's just some decisions they make in the movie. Like the reason they're fighting each other is it's just manufactured. Like this whole movie, it's just manufactured. Why Cap and Tony have a problem with each other. It was done just so you could split them up. But they're not really split up. Just to get them back together in Infinity War and Endgame. And that's what really sucks about Civil War, in my opinion. I'm going to call it Civil War this one time. It sucks for that reason. Was because you just take such a really good storyline, and I understand you didn't have certain characters, but I really feel like they could have did around it. Maybe there should have been no Zemo, because his plan was so fucking bad. It was like literally a comic. It's like one of the really worst comic book villains. Just really, it's as bad as, like, let's say the Superman Returns Lex plan. How he got the tape made no sense. Why didn't he just send it to Tony via email? All he had to do was just email the video to him. And why is the video so crystal clear in the first place? It just Tony wouldn't have even been down in I think it's Sokovia where they went to if fucking Falcon didn't tell him where they were going. If that didn't happen, then what was Zemo's backup plan? Just all around. You didn't need a villain pulling the strings. It would have worked just as well if you just had Ross be the one to tell Tony. If you did that, you wouldn't have had that stupid fucking video that just somehow, it's 1991, but somehow is able to stay clear, crystal clear, last through into 2016 and still look good and not fuck up somehow. And why didn't Zemo just fucking email it to him? Email it to him before the fight. That's another way. You didn't need Zemo. Zemo was just dumb. It just felt like they needed a villain. And it's like, whereas Lex Luthor in BVS, especially if you watch the Ultimate Edition, you see his plan playing out throughout the film. And it makes sense. It's not overly complicated. It's not reliant on fucking convenience. It just like Lex Luthor, you see throughout the film why his plan is working, and you just see him playing everyone like a fiddle, and it's believable. It makes, yeah, that's my biggest problem with Zemo. Zemo, you didn't even need him. You really didn't. And I guess you want to get to why the whole thing was going down was the Accords, and just in my opinion, the Sokovia Accords just did not work for me. It didn't make sense. The reason Tony doing all this change because of one mom, even though he helped save the world, it just that didn't work for me. And then a lot of the people who were going with each side just were there just because they're fucking out of just they were just there. There was no reason. They weren't like in the comic. Everyone had a reason to fight. In this, no one really does. The only one really has a reason is Cap and Tony. Vision's just there out of obligation. Same with Black Widow and them. And then on the other side, Peter has no real reason to be there. That's gonna be another point. I'm gonna compare Spider-Man and Wonder Woman when I get down to it. And then on the other side, you get Cap scene, which is same thing. Bucky, I guess, kind of has more importance. It's like the last film where Bucky even kind of matters. But then the rest of them are just there out of obligation. And then their play fighting is the worst part was fucking Hawkeye and Black Widow. We're still friends, right? Oh, if you don't hit me too hard. It was something like that. It was just really like you can't take yourself seriously. This is supposed to be the follow-up to Winter Soldier. That's what really pisses me off. Like Winter Soldier's so good, and then this is the follow-up. And I'll admit, I'll say this: I was okay with Civil War at first, but just the worst it got to me. And now, I think this year is when I really just noticed the problem. Like you wasted such a good storyline just so you can have a bunch of heroes on screen. That's all it was for, and it. And I guess we can continue. Like, I mean, the Sokovia Accords didn't make sense. Zemo wasn't needed. It was an Avengers movie. It pretty much was just an Avengers film. It's not a Captain America movie. It doesn't feel like the end to a Cap trilogy at all. To me, there's only been 2 Captain America movies, and then Civil War is just an Avengers film. Some even call it Iron Man 4, and it kind of was. You know the other problem I have with it? The tone is so inconsistent. In the beginning, it tries to be all serious, and then it becomes a joke in the middle of it. You know, I think that shift starts when Peter and Tony meet the first time, and then, when Ant-Man meets... And it's fine with certain characters, but this is when it's definitely started to be noticeable. Every character has to be a fucking quipping asshole. And it just... And then through the airport fight, and then the last... part where Cap and Tony fight, which I will say this. The fight between Iron Man, Tony, and Bucky was really good. I actually really did enjoy it, but it was very short. I still think it's kind of dumb. Like, this is where because if Tony didn't show up, what would fucking Zemo's plan be? And, they wasted that Winter Soldier storyline, like where there was a bunch of Winter Soldiers in stasis. Why didn't that be Zemo's plan? I would have, you know what? That would have been my ending. You still have the Cap and Tony fighting with Bucky, and then something happens where maybe they snap out of it or something, and Zemo sees that, so he releases the Winter Soldiers, and then maybe they fight, and Cap, Tony, and Bucky get overrun, and then something happens where the other Avengers gets let out, and you didn't need to split them up, to be honest. That would have been a much better ending. I would have still had problems with the movie, but I would have accepted that ending. Because if you're going to rip off BVS, just go full and have them all come together in the end. It would have made more sense. Because they were making such a big, you have all these other Winter Soldiers and he just shoots them. And that's it. Wait, great. And we have a pretty whack final act. The fight was good, but that was it. And I get some people, there was emotion in it. There was, but it was nowhere near the fight in the comic. It just... And then it doesn't even end with Captain America. It ends on Tony. And Tony's going to call him, so it takes you out of it. And it's like, unlike the BVS just all-around conflict where it was real. Batman's problem with Superman was the destruction, and then He just saw Superman as a potential alien that can harm, and is just growing more paranoid versus a Superman who just sees Batman, torturing. And that's his Lex manipulating everything, and it makes sense. He's manipulating both of them, and Lois is kind of like the only one who really figures it out. But it's very much about them. It doesn't feel people. That's why they criticism. It's all over the place. I disagree with. What's going on. It's very much focused on Batman and Superman. Yes, do they drop little Easter eggs here and there? Yeah, but it's still a film on its own. It wasn't like Civil War, which is just a glorified Avengers movie. It really was. And the struggle was realistic. And then when the fucking climax, which was the fight was hard hitting. It lasted. It didn't last too long, but it had a decent length, and it was built up well. The Cap Tony run wasn't really built up. They had sides, and even when they were arguing, I didn't feel like, oh, they're gonna fight. No, I only kind of felt that it's just because you knew it in the comic. It was gonna happen in the movie. It's like I was really disappointed because it's like I was hoping for more build up. With whereas the Batman Superman fight was just built up well, and then it ends, and then the movie was all about Superman bringing humanity back to Batman, and it worked so well. Whereas Civil War, there was no point to it. And in 4 years later, this is going to be the other difference between these two movies. BVS lasted longer and holds up for 4 years, whereas Civil War doesn't. It gets worse each time. I don't know. It's such a, especially for a follow up to the badass Winter Soldier. It just didn't work for me. Whereas BVS did, and it's fine if people feel the other way, and that's fine. But for me, this is just my feelings on it. And there's more. There's more. Oh yeah, Spider-Man and Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman was implemented better. I will say this is the only time Spider-Man in the MCU was cool. I'll say that, but Wonder Woman was implemented in the plot very well because, she wanted Lex's stuff too, and you see Batman and her meet up throughout the film. And she's kind of built up where Spider-Man is just kind of thrown in there, and it was just because they finally got the rights. So they just kind of squeezed them in there. So and I don't fully agree with the criticism. I'm fine with them being in there. But if you're going to say Wonder Woman is squeezed in BVS, even though you see her implemented throughout the movie, versus Spider-Man, you could say it was squeezed in there. And you only see him as Peter like one time, and then he's Spider-Man, and then he's gone. Whereas Wonder Woman's in the final act, and I'm sorry, it was a much better entrance. The music, the mood, and just all around. That final act with the Trinity coming together, whereas Civil War was just Iron Man and Cap punching each other for, I don't remember how long the fight was, like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. It just wasn't. I get some people don't like Doomsday, and that's fine, but I think BVS just had a much better final act. I think all around, BVS did a better job at being its own movie, but also setting up a world, whereas Civil War was only done because BVS happened, and they shouldn't have did that. They should have just did a Cap 3. Because in my opinion, I would have loved a real Captain America. And a real ending to that trilogy. We haven't really had it. And I don't think we are going to have it because Cap retired now. So it's disappointing that 4 years later you wasted such a good storyline just so it can be as I call it, just a roadblock to Infinity War and Endgame. Just so you can do a convenient, they're split and then they're back together. There was no need for it, man. I wish Civil War was so much better. BVS is awesome, so that's the point of this video. So, other than that, that's all I wanted to say. My next video, it will be one of two things. It will be either me ranting on Hulk and Thor, or it will be maybe I'll go into how I would have done the Disney sequel trilogy. So, other than that, that's all I had to say. Peace.